Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. So let's talk about some gear and guitar stuff now. Do you play other than when you're in the studio? I know you mentioned to me that you have a friend in town you play with once in a while. Do you play out locally, or, you know, if you're not going on tour?
Well, I play out with a girl maybe twice a month. It seems like I always have these little side projects, and they're always fun, and they're usually unrelated to the rest of life. You know, like the girl I'm playing with now, Sarah. She's a cello player, but she loves pop music. So sometimes it's just the two of us, and sometimes there's more of a band, and it's really fun because I get to be like soundscape guy behind her deal, and
like producer sort of.
Well, she's pretty dialed in on what she wants, but she kind of lets me just be, you know, sometimes like I'll play a synthy delay weirdy thing going on behind her cello part, but she sings and plays, so it's a really fun thing to do, and I really enjoy doing it. But occasionally there are other gigs. Last night I did this thing that I've done every year for the past 4 or 5 years. There's a small college here, Lipscomb College, and they have it's called the Cowboy Show. And a few friends and I have done this. Pat Flynn is our fearless leader on it, and you might remember him. He was with Newgrass Revival,
okay, back
in the day, and he's great guitar player, and I think he has been doing this as long as they've been doing it. So you know, he's roped a few of us in to do this with him, and it's pretty fun. They pick sometimes modern songs off the top 40 list, sometimes they're old songs, and they'll have some of the students come up and sing. And sometimes they are really, really, really good. And other times they are really, really bad. But the ones that are really bad know it. And it's somewhat of a party type thing. And for instance, last night they came on stage and did some old bluegrass song that was in that movie. I can't remember the name of the song. Just can't remember anything anymore. But they all came on.
It's all right. It's Sunday, man. You don't have to remember anything.
They had
a day off.
Beards on, and they were, you know, like backwoods kind of looking guys, you know, and they were terrible, and they knew it. But they had a routine down, and so it was a lot of fun. But stuff like that, I think, also keeps you fresh, just playing music.
Are those paid gigs, or is that like a give back kind of thing?
No, those are paid gigs, but I'd probably do them anyway.
Don't say that too loud.
Don't take that.
You don't want to say that on this show.
You might want to edit that.
Yeah. That was a accident. Well, let me ask you a question about that. Because you're a guy that gets paid. You're paid for your time. You're in the service business. Is it hard for you to play with somebody without the clock running?
Sometimes it is. It's not that I don't want to, or I do want to, or anything. It's just I think when you're paid as a professional, there's when you start doing that job, there's an end point to it. Like a good fun session starts at 10 a.m. and it's going to end at 1-ish, more or less. And there are times you get hired and you go in and you don't know what you're getting into, and you get there and for whatever reason that day it's just not good, and you go, it's going to end at 1 o'clock. But the non-paying stuff, I think that's necessary to do for me. Benefits, stuff like that. I love to get involved in. I love to give back to the things that mean something to me. We have a benefit coming up for might be some of the Houston stuff. I can't remember. We're doing something in November with Reba, and they just sent us out hey, we're going to do this benefit. They sent out an email to the band. Who's available and would like to do it? And I think most everybody said yes. I think maybe one person was out of town and couldn't do it, but I think those things are important. I've been given so much that it really means a lot to me to give back. But, play at church, play at whatever. It's just.
Sure. What about a situation where, because this is what happens to me at times, and this is not about me, but if I could explain this, it may make sense to what I'm trying to figure out. You sell intellectual property when it comes down to it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times people will say, hey, they come to me and I'm a consultant for marketing, and they say, hey, a buddy or sort of somebody that knows me, hey, I need some help. Now, sometimes I'll just say, hey, if you want to talk about this, I'm happy to help you. But other times people that I haven't said that to say, hey, can you give me I need to pick your brain. Well, man, you can pick my brain for X dollars an hour.
Right.
So that's what I mean. Like in a situation where someone says, hey, Jeff, let's go play. Do people do that to you where they think, hey, we're kind of buddies, let's go play? And is it okay? Or do you say, well, we can't, is it hard to draw a line with a buddy and say, yeah, well, I do this for a living? Because people sometimes when when you're selling intellectual property, people who don't sell intellectual property don't understand that, most of the time people are cool and it's innocent, but other times you want to go say, hey man, go ask a New York attorney to hang out with you and discuss, your divorce for free.
Right.
Right. So does that happen ever?
It does. I think if you're working here and and your name has been on some records and stuff, new guys will come to town and they will seek you out and want to know what, they will try to figure out what you're doing, what you do to like I did, we go seek the guy. I'm not saying I put myself in that top priority position, but so, hey man, can I come over and can we play for a little while? And I might say, sure, let's do that for a little while, but I have stuff I've got to, accomplish today. So I always have
your boundaries, parameters.
And plus, hey, there's a guy I might learn something from. I might be able to steal something from the guy,
Yeah,
I don't mind doing that to a point. Again, that makes me feel like I'm giving back.
Totally get it.
And again, most of my past 20 years have been, here's a song. Let's figure out how to put this puzzle together. And when somebody sits down, okay, let's play something in G. Okay, well, first thing my head is I go, well, I have to have a chart because I need to see but then I realize we're not doing, let's play, Stormy Monday for 20 minutes. And it's like, well, I might play that for a while with you, but what is my job here?
Yeah.
It's kind of going, but then once you kind of release yourself from that, I guess that's jamming. It would be, the whole thing. Like, I think a lot of the guys like myself, we just don't do that much anymore. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying we just don't have the,
Yeah.
Like my wife and I, she's a great fiddle player, and we don't necessarily come home after I work in the studio or she's worked in the studio all day and go, hey, let's play some, let's go to the back porch and play some fiddle and guitar. It's like, no, why don't we sit down and watch some Netflix?
Yeah.
get our mind off of that.
Yeah. I could understand that.
I think most of us here are the same way when it comes to something like that. But, to answer your question, yes, I try to do that as much as I can, but
you have to have boundaries because, that's what my experience has been anyway.
It is, and most guys that are calling me doing that are respectful guys. They come. I figure if they're going to call me and ask me something like that, they're not going to necessarily come over and show me how great they are. They're going to come over and we're going to play something together. It's going to be fun, and
yeah.
So I try to do that.
Yeah, I understand, because I always like to give back too. You have to evaluate each case, I think, and
you do.
But sometimes you do. I think, and it's smart. You say, well, I've got an hour,
right?
Or I'll say, I got a couple of minutes, but really, most of your questions we're going to need a big involved conversation,
right?
And they kind of get the message. I was just curious. All righty, when you're not playing in the studio, so when your selection of instruments is not dictated by what's required, what's your go-to guitar that you like to pick up and play?
Well, I have an old small-bodied Martin gut string that I enjoy playing, just sitting around the house. And so up here in my living room over there, there's a telly of some sort sitting there. Sometimes I'll sit down and play, just noodle. Sometimes I'm searching for song ideas and things. I'll write a little bit, and I'm looking for stuff that's interesting. So, or you try to practice, but again, it's the age-old question: what do I practice? And then the answer is always, well, there are a million things, Jeff, you could do better at. And I'll go, well, I don't know.
Yeah, but at this stage, you don't want to do anything that's not enjoyable. It's just not. I mean, I can't see you wanting to play scales,
right
at this stage of the game. I'm sure you could be a better, Mixolydian mode scale player or whatever, but right. Why?
Right. Well, for me, I'm always searching for melodies, and so sometimes I'm just playing to play, with no, in the commercials. I'll mute the TV in the commercials and play for a little while. And then if I get into something more involved, I usually go downstairs where all my stuff is. So
you'll either pick up your Martin or the telly. Is that a Fender telly?
No, this is some, I don't even know what that is. It's just a piece together or something that has no name on it.
What are your let's say your top 3 guitars now you're playing in the studio?
I'd say I'm playing my Les Paul a lot.
That's a change. I bet if I asked you that question 20 years ago, you wouldn't have said a Les Paul.
Exactly. You're right. I would have said, at that point, I probably would have said a Strat or Telly, which to narrow it down to 3 is difficult, because I usually walk into any session with probably 5 guitars, and I might not play them all, but I have my Telly, which is got the G bender, and it's Joe Glazer here in Nashville made the whole thing. It's a Glazer Telly, so it's been my go-to Telly since '85 when I bought it new, and it's barely recognizable now, which is almost
That's awesome.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I have a Gretsch with me pretty much at all times, of some sort. I've got a couple Duo Jets, and then I've got some older ones, that one I keep here at home and one I keep in my guitar trunk that goes to sessions. It's one of the old orange Chet Atkins model ones. And I've got my trusted PRS DGT, which always has something good to say sound-wise. It's got a lot of sounds in it that I can use. And
there's a funny video of you online playing that. I think it's playing that PR. Is it a gold?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's a funny video where you have I don't know, you guys, it sound like you're in a studio with a bunch of buddies and you're ripping some licks, but I don't know, y'all were all laughing. It was like a chart. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
There's a chart. There's a what do you call not a chart, a music stand in front of you. And you're like, bring it on, man, bring it on. It was
I think I know which one you're talking about. And I think that is another case of where I'm hearing this and I have to get this done, and they're going, no, it's good, it's good.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were saying right.
Yeah. Well, and then I usually have a baritone with me because you just never know.
Tell me about your Les Paul.
My Les Paul is probably an 05 or 06, and it's I actually have 3 Les Pauls, but that's my main one that I use is the 05 or 06, and I think it's a custom shop second, to be honest. I took it out with Reba the first few years I was doing that, and I've got an old 78 that I keep at home, and I use that a lot here, and I've got the wine colored, is it the Deluxe that has the mini humbuckers in it? And
yeah, I know the one you're talking. I don't know what model it is.
But the newer one is probably my main Les Paul that I would use. So
what color is that?
It's a Honeyburst. It's called.
Right. And is it the burst bucker pickups in there, or?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any cool or interesting stories behind how you acquired any of your guitars?
Boy, I think almost all of them are interesting. You know, they all come with a thing. Several of them I have bought, or even some of the specialty instruments, like, say, for instance, my metal-bodied National acoustic. That came from the record I was telling you about, where we did the soundtrack for We Were Soldiers. Friend Chris called me and he goes, "Hey, do you have a metal-bodied National or something like that we're going to use on this?" And the gig's 2 weeks away, and I went, "Yeah, I've got something like that." Do you hang up?
That's
the phone?
awesome. That's awesome.
All of my, but I mean, between, you could pick 10 guys, 10 guitar players, and between 10 of us, we've got one of everything.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I could call. And I thought, but I'm just going to run down to the stores and kind of around town, because we've, in Nashville, we've got great vintage stores. We've got Gruen's and Carter's, and I went into Gruen's and I looked up.
Hold on a second. This is so funny, because imagine if your wife said to you, she needed a certain set of shoes she's going to wear one time, and 3 of her friends had one, same size, and she said, "But I figured I'd go down to the store and just buy a pair of new ones." You'd be like, I know I wouldn't, but I'm thinking like you, yeah, man, let's go get one,
Yeah. Well, her favorite thing is she always says, "Why do you need another guitar? I mean, how many more guitars are you going to need?" And I'm going to say, "Just one more."
Just one more, honey.
But that's how I bought the National, because I found one and I thought, this is great. And it had a great price on it, and it was old and 1936. And
wow.
I was just looking for one that sounded good, and
yeah.
I bought it, and now I've used it on a ton of stuff. And
fantastic.
I have an electric sitar made by Jerry Jones that I was playing. I actually didn't have one, and I got a call. Was doing something with Dan Huff when he started producing, and he said, "Hey, do you have a sitar?" And I said, "Yeah, I have one, yes."
Yeah, always yes. Yes.
And then I got off the phone. I got out, I was calling my buddy Jones down there, and I said, "Hey, listen, do you have any sitars?" And he said, "Yeah, I've got one right now." And I said, "I'm on my way." So, and of course, once you have them, you use them. And
yeah. How do you? What is the sitar set up like?
The one I have has, it's not the Gordon thing. It's an electric sitar. It's just like playing a regular electric guitar. It looks kind of weird. You can find a picture online, I'm sure. But the one I have it's called harmonic strings, I guess. And they're up on the top. There's probably, I don't know. I don't know that I've ever tuned them, but maybe 12, 15 strings. And in theory, there are pickups. There's a pickup up there on that too. It's kind of looks like a very small mini auto harp type thing without the buttons.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the theory is you could tune that to open whatever key you're in and open up that pickup. And while you're playing down on the neck, the sympathetic ringing and everything creates this thing that goes on, and it's pretty cool. I've done it a few times just for whacked out things where I'll rake my pick across it and put a bunch of delay and stuff on, and it's just wreaking havoc somewhere back behind something,
That sounds fun, actually, to do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting, synthy type ground cover thing, whatever. So.
And the regular strings, it's tuned just like a guitar.
Tuned like a guitar, and the it has pickups like the lipstick pickups on it, and the bridge is got this black thing that as the strings come across the bridge, the black thing is right there, so it kind of lays on it comes across the bridge and lays on the black thing, whatever that thing is, and that's what causes the bzzz thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never actually seen one. Every time I hear sitar, I always think of Paint It Black.
Oh, right, yeah.
By the Stones, for some reason. That always comes into my head. Yeah, those are good stories, man. Who are your biggest influences, guitar-wise?
Well, I have to say when I moved to Nashville, it was Brent Mason, and I would say Brent Rowan as well. Both of those guys. Brent Rowan was a guitar master at sessions. I mean, he came up with so many great things back. He played on a lot of stuff starting in the probably late 70s through the 90s and probably on into the 2000s. But just a great innovator sound wise. He may have been one of the first guys to start using racks and processing and stuff like that. Whereas before, it was a few pedals and an amp. And, I'm not exactly sure if I'm accurate about him being the first guy, but,
sure.
He was the first guy I saw with the big, LA style refrigerators here. And then we all did it, and then it went away again. So, but the guys that were accessible to me around town were huge.
Yeah.
Kenny Greenberg, Chris Lusinger, those guys, everybody had something that they did great. And then, the Larry Carltons and the Robin Fords and those guys, you just for guitar, but.
What do you said everybody had something they did great. What's your thing? Like if someone's going to say, oh, if someone's in the studio and say, we need this, like, what are they going to think of you for? What's that one thing that they'd say, oh, call Jeff?
Availability?
No, he doesn't. The no is not in his vocabulary.
No, I don't really know that. I don't really know that I'm a master of anything. I think
No, I don't buy that. You must know. There's gotta be. Forget about. Let's take the term master out of it.
Right.
So take the term. And think genre or particular sound, particular skill set. What would you say? Forget about everybody else. If the question is just, hey, what's your particular thing that you think you have a strength in?
I would say it's what I feel comfortable doing is some of the more pop oriented country stuff that's out now. I know how to get the sounds, and I know kind of how to find the parts, and I just find a lot of that very interesting to me.
I would imagine playing with Reba all these years has really helped hone that.
It has. I don't know if I mentioned, but we were referencing Jerry earlier, but Jerry was the guy I replaced.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. See, all you guys are the same. You don't like. This is what I notice about the top guys, and it's wonderful, and it was what makes successful people in any business. You're not running around, hey man, this is what I do. You're very mellow. You're all very humble, and I don't even think he told me that.
Well, see, Jerry and I, we were on a couple Reba records together. And I mean, we'd known each other before then, but and probably played some together. But we got to know each other really well and became good friends. That was, from the way I remember it, that was kind of the first time we'd been able to spend a lot of time together, because we track for a week, and then we come back and track for another week. And so when she put her band together, Jerry went out and did the first batch of stuff, and then he went to play with Faith Hill at that point, and that's when Reba's manager called and said, "Hey, we've got some dates coming up. You want to come out and play some guitar?" And my wife was playing fiddle in that band at the time, and I thought,
awesome.
I'll do that. I mean, at first, I have to say, I was like, do I want to go back out on the road again? But it was a different kind of road than I had been on before. So
I'm sure, yeah.
A little more well-oiled machine than I had seen.
Than the guys from Texas that you met up with when you first came to Nashville?
Oh, yeah.
So you got to tour with your wife.
I did for a couple years, and then she moved on to a band called the Steel Drivers, and now she's been doing that full time. So
that must have been really cool.
It was cool. We got to experience a lot of cool traveling together. And as I said, it wasn't that much. It wasn't like a serious road gig where we go out for, like we did with Patty Loveless for 200 days a year or anything.
Sure.
But it was awesome, and we got to go out and do some cool stuff together.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You get to, well, plus, a lot of guys I'll interview, and, they're on the road, and I'm always like, listen, thank you very much for your time. I know you're out on the road. I really appreciate it. And they're like, no. Thank you for taking an hour and a half of my time away, because now it's, that's one less block of stuff I've got to figure out what to do with, and now that's what I'm thinking, like that tour, you got to sit and walk around and, stroll down wherever. I mean, because if you're in the middle of nowhere by yourself, it sucks. But if you're in the middle of nowhere with someone that, like your partner, man, it doesn't matter where you are. Everything smells better, looks better, feels better. You could just go have a cup of coffee, and it's in Joe's Diner in the middle of nowhere, but it's nice now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great, man.
Yeah.
Is there a guitar that you ever got rid of that you regret?
Oh, yeah. There was the Telly, the early 70s. What's the one with the F holes? I can't remember.
Thin Line Custom. And I don't know if it was a great guitar or not. I just so wish that I would still had it, because I did a nasty, really stupid trade. What'd you do?
Well, there was a guy in town, and if you don't know who this is, you should go back and look it up on YouTube. But his name was Phil Ball. I think it's Baugh.
Okay.
And he played on sessions, one of the early greats. And I met him, and he was a sort of a crusty old guy, but he was such a great player, and he was, a nice guy. But you could tell the no nonsense kind of thing. I say that's what I mean when I say crusty. But he played a lot with Buddy Emmons on records. Buddy Emmons was a great steel player, and has passed. They both passed away. But Phil had this. PVT 90 or T70 or something, I can't remember. And he had it hooked up to these piano pedals, if I'm remembering correctly. So he had a Bender guitar that you didn't push or pull from a strap, but you would sit down and it would be like, the pedals for a piano.
Okay.
And there might have been 6 pedals. I can't remember, but still to this day, I don't think there's. Do you know the song "He Stopped Loving Her Today"?
I do not.
Jones.
No.
If you were to go back and listen, you'll see in the front of that song there's this string that goes, and I still can't get anybody to clarify if that was Phil Ball or Buddy Emmons that did that, because Phil Ball's sound was very much like a steel guitar. But Phil Ball was another guy I used to go see, and Phil's band was Paul Franklin and might have been Larry Franklin. No, it wasn't Larry Franklin. It was Rob Hajakis, who all those guys.
The steel. Paul Franklin's the steel. Yeah.
And Rob was, great. That did all. I mean, he did tons and huge records, and both those guys. And there were other guys in that band as well that did great. But Phil used to. It was so amazing to me the way he did his thing. And I thought, I need a guitar like that. And so I went and traded my inline telly. But, we all learn things. And
you just didn't have the applicability to use that thing as much as you thought?
Well, he built the thing. And so I didn't have the string bender thing. I just had the guitar. And, he was an influence.
Yeah.
Because he played, every how many nights a week at that club. And I would just go sit and go, wow, that's just the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So I was very young and,
I know you're saying, because that's why I got that SG after I saw Derek Trucks. I've never sounded like Derek, though, funny enough.
Well,
but he inspired me to buy the SG.
That's right. Well, hey, that's what we use. That's what we use those guys for. They inspire us to figure out something.
Yeah. I actually, the night I saw him, he was down here at the, they have a blues festival out in St. Pete once a year. And I've seen hundreds of shows, and I took my son to see the show, and he closed out his set with a Bob Dylan tune that he covers. I think it's called Down in the Flood. Jeff, in my entire life, I'm 53, of listening to music, I have never had an experience like that. I had goosebumps. I've never seen anything like that. It was like, the spirit of the universe. What he did with, I can't even put it into words. It was phenomenal. I've never seen something like this. And I walked out of there. I don't think I said a word to my son for about 10 minutes. He goes, "Dad, are you okay?" I said, "Nick, I don't know if you realize what you just saw there."
Right.
And I am not a guy that gets starstruck or blinded or just like, wow. This was just phenomenal, though. I couldn't even. Yeah, I felt like so lucky to have had an opportunity to have that experience, It's just...
You had a great connection to something, and that's unbelievable.
It was unbelievable, yes. And I've seen 100 or more shows, but that... And we had like third row seats, too, which was great. Yeah, so it was like... Yeah, you know what happened? That Santana concert, I never had good concert seats. So Ann, my wife, says... my daughter was in cheerleading at the time. She goes, "Hey, Craig, do you know Santana? I think you know them, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, there's a mom on the cheerleading team. She's got season tickets that her dad, bought her." She goes, "And she's selling them." I said, "Man, if she's selling them, she doesn't know what she has." I said, "Offer her $50 and she'll be thrilled." So she goes, "Hey, I'll give you $50." And she goes, "Oh yeah, I'll take it."
Oh, great.
So they were fourth row seats to see Santana. But let me tell you, after I saw that, I was jaded. I've always now, it's like smoking a great cigar versus or playing it's like playing your Les Paul Custom versus the Epiphone.
Right.
It's just not going to work anymore after you do that,
right.
And so I bought those third row seats to see Derek. I was just,
wow,
best decision I ever made. Sorry, man, I didn't mean to talk about
that. No, Santana. I didn't say that on my influences, but that song Europa. Do you know that song?
I'm sure I know most of his catalog. I don't know them all by name.
You know it. It was a big one.
One of the older ones.
Yeah, it's an older one, and I learned it. It was probably the first one that I learned note for note all the way through, and I was thrilled to just sit and play it over and over and over again. The melody content is such. Santana is all about the melody and about the thing that he does, whatever. And what a great player. I was able to go to one of their sound checks one time.
Wow.
Although they weren't there because they were flying in their private plane, I guess. But I went. My tech with Reba knew their tech, and he said, "Hey, come on over." And I was like, "Oh man, I get to really see what it is that it sounds like, And so I get there, and he has 3 racks of heads, and there were dumbles in there, and there were a couple boogie heads. Each rack had a boogie, had a dumble, and a boogie, and a dumble, and the third rack was
3 dumbles.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a little bit of an investment.
Well, yeah. And then it seems like he had a 412 cabinet with a 112 on top of it. And I got over to look at his pedal board, and I looked at it and I was like, wow. Then it had a wah on it and a Zen drive, I think, an overdrive pedal, and maybe a couple other pedals. But I was standing there looking at it, and I thought, it looks like he replaces pedals and just throws them down and plugs them in. And I thought, wow, how cool. I mean, it looks real.
Yeah.
And then the Santana's tech had a buddy there that wanted to play, and so I didn't get in the way or anything. So I kind of walked out front. I thought, I want to hear what this sounds like. Like, I was from the front of the stage. I wanted to hear what the sound sounds like.
Yeah.
And the buddy unfortunately picked it up and started going. I was like, oh man,
it's like shredding or something.
Do the thing, play the note. Let's hear what. Yeah, and what was funny is the tech. He already let him play for about 30 seconds, then.
He probably felt the same way, obviously. Yeah. Well, you know what's weird? Everybody goes nuts about Santana with PRS, but man, I mean, I thought he sounded great when he played that SG. I mean,
oh yeah,
I never listened to that and said, "Man, this sucks. We need another guitar sound," you know?
Right. Well, he had a Yamaha thing for a while there too. I think some of his guitar, he had a Yamaha period that.
Oh, I didn't know that. He played Yamaha. I thought he was from SG to PRS. It's interesting.
Maybe, I don't know. I might be wrong.
I'm sure you're not. But it was when he just put on a good show.
Oh yeah, I would love to see it. I've never seen him.
What shows have you seen that you really like walked away from there like, wow?
One was the Clapton, Eric Clapton, and I was never a huge Eric Clapton fan, although I was very appreciative of his background in the blues, and read his book, and it was great. And
great book, man, wasn't it? Tremendous.
I read all those guys.
You read Greg Allman's book. That was fantastic also.
I need to read that one, but
real good.
Pete Townsend and Keith Richard and all those. And what I take away is what great careers, and how are those guys still alive, because it's amazing.
Well, especially Keith Richards.
All of them, yeah. I think he's pickled himself, but that's okay.
Everybody's sitting around waiting, and he's getting the last laugh,
I know.
Keep collecting the money.
Well, they did a lot, but what great lives they've had. But
yeah,
I had the same experience as you. I took my son and his friend and my wife to a Eric Clapton concert, probably late 90s when he did Nashville. And I listened and I thought, man, he's such a great blues player, and he's an interesting, great singer, all that stuff. And he played Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and he did a little solo in there, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, boy, something's happening to me right this second that I don't understand. And I think it was just the simplicity and the beauty of the tone, and the whole thing just brought tears to my eyes. And I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Those were great. My first couple concerts were Kiss. When I was a kid.
Before they started having a farewell tour every year.
Yeah, before they started their 13th farewell tour.
Oh, so you probably saw them during the Kiss Alive era.
Well, it was probably 76, maybe, something like that.
Yeah, that's around when they came out with, they used to play Black Diamond and all that kind of, yeah.
It was awesome. And then saw ZZ Top, which could have made a change in my life,
In what
just
way?
seeing that. And I don't know. There's just so many great things out there,
Yeah.
Luckily here in town, and I'm sure every place has a venue like this, but we have the Ryman, which holds maybe a couple thousand people, I'm guessing, but it's up close and personal. And I went to see Jeff Beck there, and that was mind-boggling.
It's nuts. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And then he's doing all this with his fingers.
Yeah.
It's inexplicable. I mean, it's beyond, I don't understand it.
Right. I don't know. I've seen Eric Johnson, and that's great.
Yeah.
I've just been, It's been really great to see a lot of those guys and be influenced by what they do live and what you hear as opposed to what you hear on a record sometimes, because as we know, that can sometimes or not be,
yeah,
but
there's a theater here. They don't use it much called the Tampa Theatre. It's kind of like the Ryman and perfect acoustics. And Warren Haynes and Government Mule came down here one day. Holy smoke. And they play for 3 hours. They play for an hour and a half set. They take a 10 or 15 minute break. And then they come back for another hour and a half, which I don't know how he does that 300 nights a year.
Right.
But that was like a religious experience. That was phenomenal. And I've seen them now 4 times, I think. So they're, I saw the Brothers up in 2011 up in New York for one of their, their runs at the Beacon Theater too. That was a pretty good show to see, man.
Well, we're blessed here in Nashville. I don't know if you've been here and been on Broadway, but it's like you can walk down Broadway and about every 5 feet you hear a different song if you're out on the sidewalk, because all the music, the doors are open to all the bars, and there's a lot of great players down there. And I don't spend a lot of time down there, but I go down occasionally and just kind of wander around and poke in and see somebody, and just great place.
Yeah, we were up there actually about long before this whole thing started, but we happened to be up there, I think, last October, and we went down Broadway, and it was really cool. In between, everybody tried to sell us boots.
Well, there's
and my wife's like, "Hey, hon, let's get some boots." I'm like, "Babe, you're going to go home and say, why did we buy these boots? I mean, it's like 300 degrees in Florida. When are we going to wear them?" And she's like, "Well, they're so cool." I said, "I know." And I had the same thought, and I'm gathered my thoughts right before we went in here. And
right. Yeah.
So,
2 for 1.
Yeah, right. 2 for 1. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Is there a guitar that is like the holy grail of guitars for you that you've ever seen or played?
I don't know that there's one. If a guitar is in tune and it sounds good, it's the holy grail to me. It's, I don't really have a. I mean, I was lucky enough to play. What's the holy grail? Is it 59 or 58 Les Paul?
Well, I hear different things from different people. A lot of people say, I interviewed actually Greg Martin from the Kentucky Headhunters, and I love his sound. I mean, and he plays a 58, plugs it right into a Marshall, no effects, nothing, literally nothing. And it's like, I'm like, "Greg, how do you get your tone?" He's like, "Well, you just plug it in and you turn it up." He gave me all his tone settings and everything. I'm like, just get yourself a plexi and I'm like, "I don't think so, Greg. It's not going to work like that for me." But
yeah.
So he, a lot of guys 58. I think some guys 59. But you've played one of those.
I played one, and it sort of scared me a little bit, because I thought, what will I do if I like this? Because I'll never be able to afford one.
Yeah. Oh, I can't imagine what they cost now.
But no, those are great. The early Strats. I've got a 64 Strat that I love, and I don't know. It's hard for me to settle on one guitar because I just love all the different sounds of everything. So
sure. It's one thing about Fenders. They seem to be, and you're a lot better authority, but they seem to be far more consistent across the board. Like if you're going to pick up a Strat modern or vintage, it's not like dramatically different from the feel of it. I'm not talking about the sound. Whereas you could pick up 10 Les Pauls and it's like 10 different guitars.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, unfortunate, or I don't know. You just can't buy them online anymore. That's like I've learned that lesson. I'd like to, but no way.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
You have a favorite album?
Boy, if I had one album, I'd probably get, and I've probably had it 2 or 3 times and worn it out, is "Talk to Your Daughter" from Robin Ford. There's just nothing on that record that I don't love.
I'm going to have to check that out. "Talk to Your Daughter" by Robin Ford.
And, you could go farther with any of the various U2 records, which are great guitarscape records. And, of course, then you could go to AC/DC. I mean,
Why not? Why not? Do you have a favorite song?
I don't think so. I mean, I have a lot of favorite songs, but
not one. Yeah.
I can't think of any particular one right now.
All right, let's talk about personal stuff now. Not that we haven't talked about personal stuff, but, right? Something or someone you miss from your childhood?
I'd say my grandfather. My grandfather King, my dad's dad. When I was a kid, he offered to buy me right when I started to play guitar, I would go spend the night with him and take my guitar along. And one day he said, "You know what my favorite instrument is?" And I said, "No, what?" And he said, "It's the steel guitar." And I said, "Wow, okay." I'm not sure if as being 9 or 10 or 11 or whatever, I wouldn't know I know what the sound was. My folks listen to country music, but he said, "I'll buy you one if you learn to play it." And I went, "I really like playing the guitar right now. I'm thinking I'm going to stick with this." And he went, "Okay." And I often wondered what that would have been like.
Yeah. Oh, but you're obviously super comfortable with him to be, to feel that safe to say, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
That's
but
cool.
he passed away early on for me from, heart attack. So I didn't get to spend enough time with him.
Jeff, what does playing guitar give you emotionally or allow you to give yourself or others?
I think it opens up the emotions to me. I think there are a lot of emotions built in, and I think for me it's an escape for that kind of stuff. And I would hope that other people think that way. I don't know, but
I think they do, man. You're getting the call. Trust me.
Well.
Whatever you're doing is working for everybody. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
I think I'd be either an architect or a chiropractor.
Wow, that's interesting. What chiropractors? I figured you'd say something engineer. Were you like a structural engineer? What did you get your degree in?
Well, engineering technology. It was like drafting-y type stuff, but
okay.
Hence the architecture thing. But yeah.
What about chiropractor? Have you had like a lifetime of back pain or something, or?
Well, when I played football in high school, I got injured in my neck, and I couldn't turn my neck, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. And my friend said to my mom, "What you got to understand, we lived in a little bitty town way back in East Tennessee," and
sure.
He said, there's a chiropractor doctor in Maryville that might be able to help you, and I've never heard of that, so I went, and it was this older guy. And when I walked out, I was like, "Wow, I can turn my head all the way around like an owl almost, But it just really impressed me that your body could do that. And I would go back. He said, "Come back when you feel a little tight again." So I got to know him really well and spent time sitting in his office and talking over stuff. He became a good guy to me, and so I got interested in the whole chiropractic thing, and thought, man, that's really a lot to that.
There is,
especially since I'd never heard of it.
Well, yeah, I would imagine in a tiny town, that's like someone saying, "Go to see the spaceship that landed in this other city." Yeah, that had to be different. Yeah, I'm sure. Happiest moment or time in your life so far?
That could be getting married or having our third youngster. I don't know. That's a hard one. I'm a happy guy, Craig. I generally wake up pretty happy every day. So.
Well, how long you been with your wife?
We were almost 20 years.
Good for you, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And how old are your kids?
The oldest is 31, and then that's my son, and then the middle one is a girl. She's 28, and the youngest is 15. Those were from a previous marriage, but
sure. Yeah. People ask me, and I give them similar answers. Like, we've been together 25 years, and my oldest is 27, and the other one's 25. I'm like, man, just don't do the math.
Yeah.
All you need to know is we've been together 25 years. Don't worry about the other stuff.
Right.
Most important person in your life, I'm assuming, is that your wife?
That'd be my wife. Yeah.
Cool. What's the most important thing your dad taught you?
My dad taught me about the respecting the out of doors and getting out of it. That and tried to teach me basic common sense.
Man, he did a good job. I can tell you that much, honestly. And Mom, most important thing she taught you?
Mom taught me about respect and respect and family stuff,
Best money you've ever spent?
Best money I've ever spent. Well, they weren't on the singing lessons.
But bump.
I don't know. Personally speaking, was buying my first house, probably.
Was that in Nashville or out in?
That's in Nashville. And I mean, that could go a lot of different ways, but
sure. You should have said guitar, because then you should have said, well, it's guitar. And then when your wife listens to this, you just wink at her. See, honey, I answered that question, honestly.
That's right.
I have a question. Any bad habits? I don't think you have bad habits. I couldn't imagine.
Well, I like a good scotch every now and then. I don't know that.
That's a good habit, man. As long as I'm the same. You have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
As I was telling you before, we have a place down south, and I like to go out there and ride four-wheelers around the property. But basically, it's been chasing the kids for a good long time. If I'm not working, I'm going to a ball game somewhere, or
sure,
or trying to teach my daughter how to drive and live through it.
Yeah, man, I hear you on that one. But so she's the 15.
Yeah, she'll be 16 this month, and we're in the throes of it right now.
Man, that is such a difficult. Mine is 17, and we're just like so happy that the last 2 years have elapsed. It's like,
yeah,
I was very ill prepared for this.
Well, they're all different, as you know, and then this one is. It's been quite the experience.
Oh, I know how you feel, man. We're like on the 10-yard line now, man. She'll be 18 in March, and she's pretty much gotten most of the nuttiness out of her system for the most part. And then there's occasionally like something will come out of her mouth, and I'll be like, man, you got to figure out a better way to communicate what you're thinking. That's not working,
Well, you're about to get smart again. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Period where you're the smartest person in the world, and then all of a sudden you don't know anything, and you're the most ignorant parent ever, most ignorant person on the earth, and then all of a sudden, as they come out of that a little bit later, it's like, wow, maybe my dad did know something, Well, Dad's smart.
In fact, my older son, he told me last week, he said, Dad, or not a couple of years ago, actually, he said, Dad, you know what I hated the most? I said, what? He goes, when I was a kid, you used to tell me everything, and you were always right. I couldn't take it. I said, okay, I guess I'm happy. I don't know. I said, thank you for sharing. I don't know what to say to that. But a couple of days ago, our daughter, we were texting something, and I said, remember, and I tried to give her a dad lesson. And so I was telling Ann what happened in our conversation, and I said, and guess what her response was? It was the same as all of them. She said, I know. I said, yeah. She said, I know. I said, they all know that. They all know it. I'm like, okay, well, you know it.
Know it. Yeah, that's right.
You know it. Okay. You're all geniuses at this age.
I've become, my thing is, she says, I know. And I'll say, well, it's just my job to make sure I tell you over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. You have, like, that was really a difficult thing for me. I didn't have any sisters, and I had to totally like adjust, and it's having two sons first. It was different. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, you've traveled all over. What's your favorite place you've traveled?
Could be Ireland or Scotland. I've spent more time in Ireland, so I would go with Ireland.
Pretty over there, isn't it?
Beautiful. Yeah.
Favorite part of your job and least favorite?
My favorite part is probably the traveling, and the playing. I mean, that's a given, I'm sure. But least favorite part is being at the airport at 5 a.m.
I'll tell you an interesting answer to that question that Jerry gave me. He said, the part I hate the most is, he goes, I call it song triage. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, people will come in, triage is like at the emergency room. You have a triage nurse and she decides who, he said, and people come in with songs that are dead and have no business being, in the emergency room.
Right.
And we've got to rescue them.
Right.
He goes, and it's very frustrating.
No, that's a good point. And what, I was referring to the touring aspect of that, but studio wise, that's a good point.
And what I didn't know is you guys don't get paid for that.
No, lots of times you come up with a part that makes the song more memorable, I guess, and we just look at it as that's part of the day.
Yeah.
So, but I kind of feel like that. It would be nice for somebody to go, hey, I want to give you, whatever. But
yeah, I want to give you co-writing credits.
Yeah, but I guess the hope. I mean, it's not built that way.
Yeah.
But the thing that I think about when I start thinking about that kind of stuff is, well, they're going to call me back for, I'm going to be on a lot of sessions with the person. So.
Yeah, and he wasn't like acrimonious or bitter about it. He was just like, that's the frustrating part of the job, because from having to rescue this thing, it's like, there's a lot of work involved, and on top of now you got to go play it.
Yeah.
And I totally got
that. There's a lot of stuff in that. I mean, a lot of times somebody will come in and they'll have an example of their song and they'll go, here's the example, and they might play, say, for instance, I don't know. I can't even think of a song right now, but think of a song, Craig. Any song.
Back in Black by AC/DC.
Okay, here's Back in Black. I want my song to be like this. And we know that song. And then they go, here, and now here's my song. And you just go.
You just handed me a waltz.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the tempo is nowhere the same. And you go, after doing it for many years, instead of being frustrated, I go, now in my infinite wisdom, I go, what are they hearing from this? What do they want from that song? We think of it as the guitars is big, but they might play a folk ballad or whatever. We want to make this a little bit edgy. And it's like, how do you do that? And the trick is to figure out the element that makes them refer that song at all. So
yeah, the communication, like getting clarification, and what do you mean by Black and Black? Do you know John Capito? He's an amp guy.
I think so.
And John was telling me, he said something real interesting. He said one of the first things I do when people come in, they want mods, is I get our dictionaries on the same page, because they'll come in and say, oh, I want to have a brighter tone. And he's like, okay, show me what brighter is. Give me example, because, right. Brighter means it's the spectrum. Yeah.
Oh, so, sure.
And he said that's the first thing he does with everybody is get the dictionary on the same page. And I would imagine you guys have to do the same thing.
We have to do that. And some people are great at it. And sometimes it's not that people don't want to be, it's just, they just don't have they don't do what we do every day, and so they don't know, the terms on what to say sometimes. So, yeah. And sometimes that's the guy that's telling you note for note what he wants you to play, and you're going, I don't know, I don't know how to get through.
I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling it.
I don't think you can do that on the guitar, whatever. Sometimes, but
Work with me.
My one friend said he was a steel player, great steel player, and he played on a lot of records. And somebody came in humming him some stuff one time, and he said, some things are easier hummed than played.
That's a good one.
The guy just looked at him and went, "Oh, okay." He turned around and walked off, and my friend Sonny did.
That's a great answer. That's like a politician's answer,
Yeah.
Like you could dismiss whatever someone says, and they really can't come back with anything.
That's right.
Toughest decision you ever had to make, or hardest thing you ever had to do so far?
Personally or musically?
You tell me.
I'd say musically it would be anytime you leave a situation. Patty Loveless was my first big gig, touring gig, and when I left, it was, I was leaving to go do more sessions because I was getting calls and missing things because I was on the road. But I loved Patty as a person and as an artist, and I had grown up in a lot of ways from there. And so giving my notice was a bit complicated.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. How about if you're okay sharing personally?
It's probably going through my divorce.
Yours wasn't easy? No, I'm just kidding.
Probably the most difficult time in my life so far.
Yeah.
And I'm accepting 50% of the blame, so I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. But,
Sure. Well, that's very nice of you.
Well, glad it's over.
Well, the thing is, it's getting married, having kids is very difficult, but it's a natural process. At least this is how I felt when I got divorced. But getting divorced is an equally uncharted territory, but it's unwinding this thing is a lot less natural.
Right. Yeah.
And you feel very like float, like there's no net underneath you, and it's hard to figure out whatever. And then when the damn legal system gets involved with you, then you're like, it's very tough. Yeah, so I hear you, man. Yeah, very tough.
I've never been so alone in my life, I don't think.
Yeah, well, especially when your daughter is she from?
The first two are from the old marriage.
Okay.
And,
right. So I was the same. I had two, and that was what made it real tough, because you're like, that was like because by the time you're ready to get divorced, you're like, okay, I'm done with her. But at least I felt like that. But the kids, you're like, mm-hmm.
You can only unwind so far, right?
But it's tough because you're like, that's a tough thing. You take your responsibility seriously, and there's like a lot of stuff goes through your head, and you got no way to patch into the right answers on that. It's really tough. I feel you.
I think we both achieved our happiness, my ex-wife and I now. So
that's good. That's good, man. Do you have an unanswerable question? Like the one question you always seem to be asking yourself?
I say why a lot for so many reasons, but I don't know. I don't really have an answer for that other than just the daily questions that go through my head.
Most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on stage or in the studio? Well, you probably said it that time you had time for you to solo.
Oh yeah. Well, that or I fell backwards over a monitor one time.
Oh, wow.
But that was a bunch of friends and I were out with an artist that was a new artist who was our friend from before he was an artist. And so there were lots of, bet you won't go out there and stand on the edge of the stage and play that solo. I bet I will. And then I backed up and fell over a monitor.
Oh, wow. Did you get injured, or are you okay? Was that?
No, I didn't completely go all the way down, but, but the guys in the band loved every minute of it.
I'm sure, especially if they're all your buddies giving you a hard time.
Yeah.
2 more questions, man. Most important lesson your business has taught you?
I think that would be giving myself a little bit of time to try to understand every situation, as everything is different. every situation is different, and trying to back up and try to really understand what somebody is talking about or means when they're trying to do something.
Yeah, that taking a deep breath is like really worth a lot, isn't it?
It sure is.
And it takes a long time to learn that, doesn't it?
It takes a long time because, we think we know all the answers sometimes. And I mean, I'm sure I'm out of that now. I'm sure I've grown out of that a long time ago, but.
Well, the emotions take over though.
Yeah. And I want to learn to be helpful and get people where they want to be. So that'd be my answer, I guess.
Last question, man. What's your definition of happiness?
I think if I could figure out a way to balance the home life and the professional life, because I'm crazy happy with both ends of that spectrum, but it always seems like one is a little out of balance for some reason. So if I could figure out a way to make them, they both work great together. Of course, in our house, because we're all musicians, but I mean, my wife and I, but if we could just, I don't even know what that means, Craig.
No, I know. I feel you. It's a tough thing to do because my wife works at home too, and she's a realtor, and we both have the same work ethic. So we have to, to force ourselves to dial it down and just like chill out and shut off the machine.
Right.
Which is tough to do, for us anyway. Man, is there anything that you want to promote? None of you guys promote anything. How can I get people to put money in your pocket? I would love to.
I wish that I had a project, out. I've been thinking about doing one for a long, long time. And actually, Jerry and I have talked about this. We're fortunate that we get to play on a lot of stuff, and to come home and sit down and go, I'm going to write a song that's going to be on a record that's going to last forever. And sometimes I just don't have it seems like such a much bigger thing than it really is. And at some point, that's something I would like to do, but I haven't defined what that would be yet, because we go through so many different versions of ourselves.
Yeah, man. Well, if you ever have a project, please come back on the show. I'd love to promote the daylights out of it.
Absolutely,
honestly, man.
So much.
I cannot thank you enough for everything, man. You're just a class guy. I'm so pleased that I got the opportunity to meet you, that you're in my world, and you're just a very high quality guy. And I am not the guy to say that for just because it's a polite thing to do, man. You're a very genuine, very sweet guy, and thank you for being yourself and for participating in this.
Thank you for asking me. I've really enjoyed my time. It's awesome. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks so much again to Jeff King for spending his time and being so transparent and open with us. I really appreciate it. And go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get notified about future episodes. Be nice. Go play your guitar and have some fun. Till next time, I'm out, everybody. Peace. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.